This is Joe Sanchez, and he's the CEO of Q, and he's going to talk about some different trends as far as marketing strategies from ICOs to crowdfunding. He has a background in marketing and finance, which is kind of an interesting combination. So I'm going to let Joe take care of explaining all of that, but I think you're going to really enjoy it. And so here is Joe Sanchez, and I'll let you introduce your panelists.
Great. Welcome, everyone. Great to see you guys. It's my second time speaking at DigiMarcon. Spoke at the West Coast, and so I look forward to having a presentation on fintech marketing. Very close to home for me. I'm going to first start off by just sharing a little bit of how I arrived here. Fintech marketing was an area where I first was in finance for many years. I was a vice president at large brokerage firms. Left that to go do some fintech companies, including a $14 trillion ATS platform. And then I wasn't really as interested in a lot of the growth and dynamics of that industry. I went into marketing because that was a lot more fun, and got into crowdfunding and community activation. And what happened was it started out the biggest campaigns on our platform wind up being these new ICOs. So how many of you guys are familiar with cryptocurrency and the new revolution taking place right now? Raise your hand. Awesome. So we're going to talk about the new kind of future of what's now known as fintech marketing. I got two amazing panelists that are going to join me on this conversation. First, why don't you come on up, Justin Wu. Justin Wu, right here. Let's give him a round of applause. The first panelist right here. Justin Wu is one of the foremost growth experts in the world, actually. He goes around speaking on growth marketing, growth hacking, if you're familiar with that. He's now one of the most top-rated influencers in cryptocurrency and blockchain companies. He's the founder of Blocknuts, which is a crypto marketing company, and also is a social media expert for the Wall Street Journal. So let's give it up to Justin Wu. And then Sean Saunders, let's give him a round. Sean Saunders is a PR expert. He runs an agency called Graffiti PR. They specialize in fintech marketing. He's an advisor to several ICOs and crypto projects, and he's also a media producer for Blockchain X. So we're going to start a conversation on fintech marketing right now. So with that said, the world that we're living in right now with marketing and finance has never been different. Since the 1920s, the finance and marketing were very segmented. And you had to go through investment banks to be able to do investor relations and get the word out. And a lot of that has changed with new cryptocurrency and new models and innovation. And it's a really interesting game change right now. So we're going to explore that world that has been very uniquely defined over the past few years. So I want to start it off by asking you guys, where do you what does one need to think about in raising capital and approaching kind of a fintech marketing strategy today in this environment of regulations?
Well, specifically, cryptocurrencies is becoming heavily regulated. Actually, there's no full rule set out there, and my background wasn't actually in fintech until recently getting into the blockchain space. For the past year, but understanding kind of the regulations now where when you're going out and talking and marketing to investors, they have to fit some sort of guidelines in terms of accredited investors, how you're promoting it to the US. So it's been different in that the typical marketing tactics from like paid acquisition to influencer marketing to more like promo placements has been more controlled. And so as a marketer now, or growth in this space right now, has been heavily shifted to more organic forms of marketing. So content marketing, personal branding has been super heavy in the space as well. And then influencers and a lot of word of mouth using viral giveaways, viral campaigns, and kind of like share and spread it. So it's just shifted, especially with a lot of the rules coming into play, and it's forcing marketers to, more like the transactional marketers to kind of go away, just because You either have to pay millions of dollars to promote a $30 million ICO, or you have to go to more traditional, kind of like growth hacking and growth marketing that's more organic. So that's kind of like the shift, even within the past like 3 to 6 months, for me just entering the space and kind of like matching the markets.
Thank you. Sean, what about like the messaging? How do, these are very kind of complex products. How do you what are your thoughts on that?
So at my agency, we work with a wide variety of, and we do go-to-market strategy for fintech companies, blockchain and crypto. And some of the pain points that we found in sort of unpacking, and working with a new client is the research part of it. And the challenge is you always have these sort of short timelines where the client wants to get featured in Forbes. But what they don't understand is like, okay, but who are you? You know what I mean? And you actually have to unpack it to make sure, and I'm sure we found, we watched CNN and Fox, and there's this nothing burger and there's no there. And most clients, most companies really don't understand their marketplace a lot. So we do a lot of research on social media, so unpacking human sentiment, the voice. And then we also have to, at least in fintech, we actually try to read their white paper, which is this Byzantine archaic thing that's written in ancient Sanskrit, to humanize it. And then we have to, by unpacking it, we then find where we can go with this. And for us, we're sort of guerrilla in the sense that we're very urbane, but we take our clients on a sort of a journey where we try to connect them with their game, with their key market people in their different market segments. So I think with respect to messaging, you should have, at least on our team, my director of content is a securities attorney and finance, and he's also written for major journals. The other person, and the other 2 people that work for me have worked for NASDAQ and other blue chip companies. And one of the things that we say in group meetings is that we want to keep the SEC from filing something against our client and or us, or basically keep us out of jail, because the regulations are forever changing. And one question that always comes to me is, how do you keep up? And I don't think that it's, if you're from the top tier company to the little boutique agency like mine, that any of us can keep up. So I think it's really, to answer the question, you really have to unpack where the opportunity is with the voice, and then start communicating in a human fashion that's socialized very specifically with language and content. And you will find that out when you do your research.
I kind of want to add one point to that too, because like we're seeing regulations with like the government, or not even government, like Facebook, Google, Twitter, Reddit, MailChimp, ActiveCampaign. Everybody is kind of banning any talk of cryptocurrencies. So as a traditional marketer, all these like platforms, tools are just not available for you anymore. And so it forces you to then, from a growth hacking, growth marketing standpoint, go look at the more organic communities, which is a little bit different than other type of marketing, where a lot of the conversations now are happening on Reddit, which is like not a lot of people are doing Reddit marketing. A lot of they're also doing it in Telegram or WhatsApp groups. So it's very small, a lot of small groups and Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups. So it's like, how do you create a omnipresent strategy by trying to explain something that's very either complex or it's crazy, whether it be bringing logistics on the blockchain or pensions, something that's not sexy. What I've seen that kind of helped with the stories is we're in the industry right now where the current most marketers haven't shifted, like more traditional and actual experienced marketers haven't shifted into the crypto and blockchain space. So what you have left is, right now, is like the penny stock hypers, the affiliate marketers that are just pumping and dumping, and they're just doing this quick, transactional Ty Lopez level stuff. And if you can bring in like mature experience from fintech, from other industries too, from startups, tech, etc., into this space, level up the branding, the stories, then you're just going to already surpass the everyday other cryptocurrency and ICO and blockchain company out there. So that's my thought on that.
Great. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you have if you're just doing a pure finance raise for capital projects, you have to, you're doing the investor roadshows and you're doing that type of stuff. But with cryptocurrencies, you also have to build an economy. So you need to get a lot of other people involved too. So it's a really interesting juxtaposition of the two that kind of correspond when you're doing these projects. And I know like your background, you've also done crowdfunding projects that you can really just market and do direct to everybody. But with this space, how are you going about like building these communities? And maybe you could share a tactic or two that with the community.
Crowdfunding, like from Kickstarter to Indiegogo, and ICOs are very similar, at least for the early stage, and then beyond that, it's more of the traditional marketing, content marketing, branding, etc. It is like similar to what you said. At first, it's like a Kickstarter. You have pre-sale, the actual sale, and then post-sale. And what we learned working with Joe is we ran multiple campaigns in the past before that did sold tablets and hardware. What we learned is that you have to build a community ahead of time, but at the same time you have to go and try to get funding too. So you're trying to do your Kickstarter and a potential seed raise at the same time simultaneously before you even sell it to the main audience and crowd. So that requires big PR, events, roadshows, influencers, podcasts at that early stage while you're building up the list and content. And then when you shift to the actual sale itself, then that's when you start doing updates, being more transparent, doing live streams, personal branding, more speaking engagements, really driving the trust factor for the mass and audiences. And then where I'm seeing another opportunity is after these companies go raise $30 million, I've seen many campaigns, they haven't even like talked or sent an email out since like 4 or 5 months after the campaign. And they'll raise 30 million and they're telling developers to figure out how to communicate to their audience. Is just not happening and just falls flat. And so at that phase, it's just more about retention, community building on partnerships and trust, and kind of building that community forward. So each phase has been different styles, and you have to do that within a 90 to 120 day window. So that's where kind of the experience with crowdfunding came into play, where crowdfunders Kickstarters are like do or die situations with multiple channel marketing in each of the phases at the same time too. So I would look to mimic crowdfunding, like Indiegogo and Kickstarter campaigns to go into the space.
So I'd like to ask people, how many people's eyes glaze over when they hear a new sort of buzzword, growth hacking, marketing, this and that? I mean, for me, I just like, is there a new protocol, a new widget, a new something that I have to learn? How long is it going to take, and is it going to crash my system, and is it going to generate results? I think that the reverberating factor that always comes back to me is trust and human connection. And you can do that in any number of ways, obviously events, but it's sort of the each one, teach one, pay it forward way. And the question is in a campaign, in any industry or vertical, how are you really touching all the gatekeepers that matter in a mindful way, and how do you build trust? I mean, I think we all know that people make friends with people who they like, they buy from people who they trust and they like. And so, as we take our clients on a journey, I'm often confronted with, even with the best of training, and of how to message and how to pitch, that I put them in front of the key person that they want to sort of be in, and I'm there as the arbiter. And long story short, they drop the ball. So the question is how do I create, how do I manage that a little better and learn from that situation? Like, what are their nuances? And one of the things that we're doing is now is we're actually telling clients, like, we're not, month one, you will not get bored. You will not, we're not gonna waste our time and our human collateral and burn out our relationships to try to get you from point A to point B, when we know that, we put you in front of a D-lister, for lack of a better reference, and you couldn't sell it. One of the other things in terms of a growth hack that I think is really, really powerful, and it's our phones. And we've done it with a few clients, and it's as simple as doing a selfie campaign, and you can come up with simple messaging, and it's basically asking your core people in your target market and making them the influencers. People like to talk about themselves. Everyone has an ego. Why are you doing, what makes you get up in the morning? 59 seconds, please send that to us. That will make a project go viral. and that also gives you a testimonial. I mean, there's so many use cases that one can sort of share with you and the how-tos behind that, but I always found that the simple stuff with our technology, our phones, I would rather look at my phone than actually, a lot of other times being around other people. But I mean, it's the things that are sort of low-hanging fruit that can, create some marketing up push for you in your campaigns.
That makes sense. I mean, a lot of the strategies I see most successful is like in these projects because a lot of times because you're prevented to go direct to certain consumers in the United States. So a lot of them have turned to kind of organic bottom-up strategies to kind of make things very viral and organic and kind of make it really easy for word of mouth. And then they're also doing top-down strategies by using PR strategically to kind of announce things and signal that this is coming to the market with the anticipation of people that will drive demand and people will go find out how to get in these projects. Like I just saw Kodak just a signal that they're going to be raising theirs finally. But how does one, navigate, with PR strategically this way to use it, as well as in international markets, which adds a whole new dimension to this, right? Because a lot of them have to go and they have to organize events, roadshows. You're mostly dealing with multiple countries now, where a lot of the fundraising is coming from that. Like, how do you guys, organize that from an international perspective as well?
So for us, we work in primarily, with English speaking, because I don't speak Mandarin or I don't speak French. So we level up by connecting with partners that can help us. That's the easiest way to do that. But we also, in our preparation, our understanding, if you do your research, you'll understand what's happening globally. We've done the footwork already because we track our Google alerts and we communicate with the top 150 people in each silo that we work in. So I think it's about, first and foremost, having embedded relationships first, and then strategically marketing out that plan based on, all of the metrics of, how many hits is a website, what does that person write on, does it write about, does that person, he or she, write about what I'm talking about? Because I think the day of the press release as a big sort of announcement idea, it's dead, it's useless, it's pointless. I've heard from every conceivable reporter and even marketers that, all of our inboxes are filled with stuff, and we have emails that we never get to. That's the same with reporters. So I think it's about finding that champion who can then sort of usher you in to the marketplace in a meaningful way. But you also are feeding them sort of relevant content that's exciting. It doesn't necessarily have to be news breaking, but it actually has to be focused on what that person is, even in that marketplace. So if you think about a place like China, where there's a lot of regulation and there's also censorship. So how do you communicate a particular message, even if your product goes against the grain of how the country, so you have to figure out creative ways. That's pretty much how we do it.
Yeah. So, what's that? This is such a hot area right now, and I know I get so much inbound coming in from people wanting me to advise, and I have my advisory capital company called Gamma Ray that's got a lot of people wanting to see that this is a quick way to make a lot of money and find capital for their projects. Some of these projects have been around for a while, and now is a new way for them to get access to capital. And I'm sure you guys, given the involvement, I know you guys are in the space, probably getting bombarded with tons of projects on a daily basis. So how do you guys kind of sort through what could be the crap from the good to what could even be a scam? How do you guys decide where you choose your projects strategically?
Yeah, a lot of my ICOs out there are scams. There's various levels of scams, from Asian projects that literally ICO just to launder money out of China, to dead startups in LA or New York or San Francisco that didn't hit their VC funding, and then now they're trying to pivot into an ICO, and sometimes it works out too. Or you'll see some more old school brands trying to revive themselves, which is a good potential path. The best way to do any diligence is very similar to, even with Kickstarter, you can't really tell all the time whether these companies are legit or not, but it's just doing your diligence on what has the founder built. Typically when we look at it, it's have they built stuff in the past? Do they actually have users? What is their path in terms of a global market? Do they have budget and capital? And then what is their full rollout plan? Because it's one thing to launch and raise $30 million, but if the app or product and ICO itself doesn't have users to back it up at the very end, that's where a lot of them just crash and burn down because they get to the traditional problem, which is user acquisition. And so in order to just like get vetted deals, I've just been networking with other crypto hedge funds, crypto VCs, institutions, and they're the ones that are putting their money and staking it already too. And so they've done their full diligence, and then I'm just connecting with them, and they're just giving referral deals or working with other channel partners, whether it be other influencers or other people that, or actually I went straight to the developers. People who are actually building stuff, because they are the ones, since it's a very technical type of play, then I'm having them do their full pass-through due diligence, and then that's how we kind of go through all the vetted deals.
So, like I said, for me, I actually have, I have that sort of thing of the 5 friends that I would call for whatever. So for something like this, I have a group of people that are very technical and have a way of just kind of sorting it out by doing the research for me. But they look at the white paper, they look at the market opportunity, and they come back to me. And then before I even send it to my team, because we've been in sort of client relationships where all of a sudden in the middle of a campaign, the client decides to stop it. And sometimes it's something that we missed in terms of our research. So I think the ICO market is as relevant as rice cakes are to the food pyramid. They're as relevant as when apps were coming out 2 million a day 5 years ago, and then asking for press and influencers and analysts to respond to it. So I always get back to the question of how is this, for me the euphemism and or analogy is, does this thing bake cookies? And if it doesn't, then I don't do it. It's as simple as that.
Right, I mean, so a lot of people compare this new revolution as the dawn of the internet age. It looks very similar in the 90s, and there's just so much activity, and the most interesting people I know are all getting involved in this. And ICOs have raised about $7 billion, I believe, year to date. It's a massive opportunity that's been more raised than venture capital. There's a lot of marketers in the room here. So, and this presents a massive opportunities, and I'm sure many of you are thinking about how you can get involved in this. And so I wanted to ask you guys, what are the opportunities out there in marketing? Because some of these projects are deploying about $1 million or more in capital in like 4 months in order to kind of do all the things they need to do in a marketing perspective to get the word out on a global basis, to get 100,000 members in their community, to raise their $30 million. What are the opportunities out for these people here that they can get involved in, how they can?
Less about fintech and what it is doing. I think a lot of the marketing tactics for fintech will maybe spill over into corporate marketing or other verticals and ways. Specifically, how to do airdrops. So how can you do a consumer airdrop to really inform and to do sort of a level of sort of gamification and incentives? How can you do a really cool, LinkedIn campaign where, and how, there's really different, the question is how can you communicate with your target customer in a new and creative way? So I think it's going to be the role reversal of marketers using a lot of the tactics that are used in fintech to scale up on whatever it is, the marketing program that they're working on.
I would say, I said this previously, a lot of these companies don't have any experience with building a community, brand, and growth. So if you do have a lot of that experience, then definitely you can come enter in the space and just, make these companies more professional where they are and constantly communicating. When I did make a kind of big shift about a year ago, I just knew that the learning curve is very hard in terms of like blockchain, and there's like 2,000 other coins too. And so I just made it an effort. If I'm going to go out and market this thing, I have to learn 7 days a week, listen to podcasts, Reddit, go hang out in Telegrams, go to all the events, and get over that learning curve so that you really know how to source out the deals and talk to the space. Now, you don't have to have that when you start. I think that you can go to any type of blockchain and cryptocurrency company and get your hands kind of like in into the business and help them out, and that's how you can learn through just jumping right in. It's similar to my first like Kickstarter deal. I did it for kind of like low cost, kind of almost like pro bono, and that ended up doing like a 7-figure campaign. But then the next campaigns after, then I was just like charging up much more, but I really knew how to run that level type of campaign. And my first ICO was Unicoin Gold, which was a Mark Cuban backed token, and I didn't necessarily get paid in crazy amounts, but I taught that 2-3 months of like kind of like learning in school, just jumping right into the fire, so to speak, and getting and learning with other mentors and other people in the space, and that helped accelerate me fast to get into the space while combining what I've learned outside of that from startups, tech, and crowdfunding, bringing that more mature experience into the space too. So it's kind of like bridging the gaps.
But to build on that concept of mature experience, I think what you all probably will bring to at least this marketplace is it's fast moving, it's distracted, and it's a little delusional. So I think you can bring not only maturity, but actual structure and process. And I think that that's kind of what's missing when I see a lot of the campaigns, and I think it's sorely needed. So bridging old school with new, it's a huge value.
Great. With that, is there, I think we might have time for a question or two. Does anyone have a question for the panelists right now? Fintech. Okay, all right.
One question back there.
Oh, yes, go ahead. Please stand.
I'll
so-
just stand up. I'll
Yeah.
just stand up instead. What's been each of your favorite marketing tactics in Fintech?
It's shifted ever since the whole regulation space kind of kicked in. Right now, the probably most effective one right now is influencer marketing. It's not the Mayweather type of marketing. It's the actual experts are working with guys on YouTube who are actually talking about development and code. They have such big authorities or micro-influencers. And so they have such huge reach and respect, especially in at least in the cryptocurrency space. It's very reputation heavy and reputation based too. So like if you start working with bad ICOs and you don't do your due diligence, like people will find out, and they might even retro find out like a year or two and call you out on Reddit and just like devise the whole pitchforks. So again, it's very important. It's very, and you can imagine it's a very dev heavy, protected community, and if they're even sniffing people out from like past CEOs, and they're going back like histories, what people have done before from both marketing, and they'll dissect your team and all that stuff. So I'd say that reputation is very strong in the space, and trust and authority, and anything that's around that with events, creating your own content. And one other big channel that we've been doing is we're just starting to put on like our own events for the clients that we're working on, and putting their own roadshows, their own online summits, and working with people like Sean to kind of get them out there in terms of their reputation.
So for me, it's really simple. Video selfie campaign goes across all platforms. You can message it any way. You get buy-in from your target market because you're saying you're popular, you're relevant, and then you're asking them for their opinion or asking them. It's easy. They turn their phone to them, press a button, you edit it, cut it, and then you socialize it. Done. And then it creates all of these keywords, but it creates a really interesting conversation. Because what happens is that you can then bake it in with influencer relations, because then they then socialize it and share it out with their market. And people, I specifically, if I'm going to try a new pill or go to a new gym, immediately I want to go to an expert. So it also brings in that sort of, that aspect as well of working with experts. And it's easy.
And I'll add to that saying, if you can get, build a community really fast, and some of the ways that you do that is, through gamified brand advocacy and community activation. by, through these airdrops. Essentially, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's about basically they have to give away these tokens for free. They have value to it because they want to get the economy. And so if you can add it like, incentives, like, you say, hey, okay, you have to refer 2 people to get that, or like me on Facebook, or you can add different social actions and things like that. It can be very rewarding. And there's also a concept called bounty programs, where in exchange for them to write an article for you or translate something, it's kind of like you're getting your community to also be co-marketers and co-contributors and partners. And so, so by using gamification, we literally see campaigns that started with just a few hundred people, but with the power of the token as an incentive, they can grow to hundreds of thousands of people, all organically, all viral, in a matter of like less than 2 weeks. And that is like, some of the biggest like bottom-up growth that you can see in these environments.
When you speak of ICOs, are these companies trying to build like legitimate new cryptocurrencies, or is it more companies like creating vanity coins just to kind of fund their business, their startup?
The products that I've been involved with actually have been utilities for their specific industry. So like ShipChain is doing something with logistics and the blockchain, and then it depends. There's operating system projects like Ethereum level projects and competitors. So we like to deal with a lot of those because in terms of just our thesis, the space of building tokens for your industry is not going to really happen as fast yet because they're all limited by the platforms itself. Because without getting too deep into it, blockchain and crypto has a scaling issue right now where there's only like 10 transactions per second that can happen when you transact and purchase and buy things. Whereas like Visa has like 40,000, 50,000 plus. So you can see that there's a big bottleneck in technology. If I'm trying to go buy something, I have to wait like 1 hour, right? And so for us, where we're interested in is because we know that that's true, all these coins trying to build something further for like gambling and they're gonna bring in all the billions of users, will hit that bottleneck and just like cause the like Ethereum network to shut down. And so we're looking to, there's like the protocol level upgrades that we're trying to work with, and then you work your way back down to the actual like tokens for random all the way down to vanity. And then there's a new category that's coming out called security tokens, which kind of acts like stock that pays out dividends. That's going to be fully regulated. It's going to be a little bit different because you can talk about ROI and you're talking to investors. And so that shift hasn't fully happened until like Q4, and that's going to bring in, like Kevin O'Leary is trying to raise like $200 million for a hotel around here in New York. And that each token just represents a percentage of that hotel. And so we're going to see more of that come through as the SEC kind of rolls out. And then I think a lot of marketers will shift into that because that's going to open up the floodgates of like $200 million to, I've even heard 500 million plus to $1 billion ICOs like on deck waiting for regulation to happen. And it's going to come, so.
If you guys, got to understand really the potential of what's happening. Like this is like the tip of the iceberg. I think this is probably the biggest opportunity ever for marketers. It's literally $1 trillion opportunity as the world economy starts to upgrade and tokenize itself. You're talking about once large companies start to tokenize different streams of revenue or different projects. Each project can be a token. The security markets are going to be upgraded in a major way to have tokens through security tokens. It's really a game changer, and now that the wall between securities and finance and engagement and finance are kind of like coming down, the new investment banker are you guys really, and this is just a really tremendous opportunity that I think you guys really want to start to pay more attention to and look at how you can be involved in this. Sean, any closing thoughts? Well, I guess with that said, thank you very much, guys. We'll be here. And,